When I unfolded that crumpled piece of paper, I never imagined that 5 words scribbled by my daughter would change everything. Pretend you're sick and leave. I looked at her, confused, and she just shook her head firmly, pleading with her eyes for me to believe her. Only later did I understand why. But before continuing, make sure you're subscribed to our channel and tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories reach. That morning had started like any other in our house on the outskirts of Houston, Texas. It had been a little over 2 years since I married Andrew Hayes, a successful businessman I met after my divorce. Our life seemed perfect to everyone. A comfortable house in Oak Ridge Estates, money in the bank, and my daughter Valerie finally having the stability she so badly needed. Valerie had always been observant, too quiet for her 14 years, like she absorbed everything around her. At first, her relationship with Andrew was tense, as it often is for a teenager dealing with a stepfather, but over time it seemed to settle. At least that's what I thought. That Saturday morning, Andrew had invited his business partners to a formal breakfast at our home. It was an important event. They were going to discuss the company's expansion, and Andrew was especially eager to impress them. I'd spent the whole week preparing everything, from the menu to the tiniest details of the table decor. I was in the kitchen finishing a salad when Valerie appeared. Her face was pale, and in her eyes, there was something I couldn't identify right away. Tension, fear. "Mom," she whispered, approaching me carefully, "I need to show you something in my room." Just then Andrew walked into the kitchen, adjusting his expensive tie. He was always impeccably dressed, even for informal meetings at home. "What are you two whispering about?" he asked with a smile that never reached his eyes. "Nothing important," I replied automatically. "Valerie just needs my help with something for school." "Fine, make it quick," he said, checking his watch. "Our guests will be here in 30 minutes, and I need you ready to greet them with me." I nodded and followed my daughter down the hall. As soon as we entered her room, she shut the door quickly. "What's going on, sweetheart? You're scaring me." Valerie didn't answer. Instead, she picked up a small piece of paper from her desk and placed it in my hands, glancing nervously toward the door. I unfolded it and read the hurriedly written words. "Pretend you're sick and leave now." "Valerie, what kind of joke is this?" I asked, confused and a little annoyed. We didn't have time for games. The guests were about to arrive. "It's not a joke," she whispered. "Please, Mom, trust me. You need to get out of this house right now. Make something up. Say you're not feeling well, but leave." The desperation in her eyes froze me. In all my years as a mother, I had never seen my daughter look so serious, so afraid. "Valerie, you're starting to scare me. What's happening?" She looked toward the door again, as if afraid someone might overhear. "I can't explain now. I'll tell you everything later, but you have to trust me, please." Before I could ask more, we heard footsteps in the hallway. The doorknob turned and Andrew appeared, visibly irritated. "What's taking so long? The first guests just arrived." I looked at my daughter, whose eyes silently begged me to believe her. Acting on an impulse I couldn't explain, I decided to trust her. "I'm sorry, Andrew," I said, pressing a hand to my forehead. "I suddenly feel a bit dizzy. I think it's a migraine." Andrew frowned. "You were perfectly fine a minute ago, Caroline." "I know, it just came on suddenly," I said, trying to sound convincingly unwell. "You can start without me. I'll take a pill and lie down for a bit." For a tense moment, I thought he would argue, but then the doorbell rang, and he seemed to decide greeting his guests was more urgent. "All right, but try to join us as soon as possible," he said as he left the room. As soon as we were alone again, Valerie grabbed my hands. "You're not going to lie down. We're leaving right now. Tell him you need to go to the pharmacy to buy something stronger for your headache." "I'm going with you." "Valerie, that's ridiculous. I can't just abandon our guests." "Mom," her voice trembled, "please. This isn't a game. It's your life." There was something so raw, so real in her fear that it sent chills down my spine. What could possibly terrify my daughter like that? What did she know that I didn't? I quickly grabbed my purse and car keys. We found Andrew in the living room chatting with 2 men in suits. "Andrew, I'm sorry," I interrupted. "My headache's getting worse." I'm going to the pharmacy to get something stronger. Valerie's coming with me. His smile froze for an instant before he turned to his guests with a polite expression. My wife isn't feeling well, he explained. Come back soon, he added, glancing at me casually, though there was something in his eyes I couldn't read. Once we got in the car, Valerie was trembling. Drive, Mom, she said, staring at the house as if expecting something terrible to happen any second. Just get away from here. I'll explain everything on the way. I started the car, my mind spinning with questions. How serious could it be for her to act like this? Then she began to speak and my world collapsed. Andrew's trying to kill you, Mom, she said, the words coming out like a suppressed sob. I heard him on the phone last night, talking about putting poison in your tea. I hit the brakes hard, nearly crashing into the back of a truck stopped at the light. My body froze. I couldn't breathe, let alone speak. Valerie's words sounded absurd, like something out of a cheap thriller. What, Valerie? That's not funny, I finally managed to say, my voice weaker than I wanted. Do you think I'd joke about that? She shot back, tears filling her eyes, her face a mix of fear and anger. I heard everything, Mom, everything. A driver behind us honked and I realized the light had turned green. I pressed the gas pedal automatically, driving aimlessly, just trying to get farther from the house. Tell me exactly what you heard, I said, forcing myself to stay calm even as my heart pounded against my ribs. Valerie took a deep breath before continuing. Last night I went downstairs to get some water. It was late, maybe 2 a.m. The door to Andrew's office was slightly open and the light was on. He was whispering on the phone. She paused as if gathering courage. At first I thought it was about work, you know? But then he said your name. My knuckles turned white from gripping the steering wheel so tightly. He said, everything's ready for tomorrow. Caroline will drink the tea as she always does during these events. No one will suspect a thing. It'll look like a heart attack, you guaranteed it. And then he laughed, Mom. He laughed like he was talking about the weather. My stomach twisted. That couldn't be true. Andrew, the man I shared my bed and my life with, planning to kill me? It was too absurd. Maybe you misunderstood, I said, desperately searching for another explanation. Maybe he was talking about another Caroline, or maybe it was a business metaphor. Valerie shook her head firmly. No, Mom. He was talking about you in today's meeting. He said that once you were gone, he'd have full access to the life insurance money and the house. A chill ran through me when my daughter added in a trembling voice. He mentioned me too. He said he'd deal with me one way or another. Fear paralyzed me. Andrew had always been so affectionate, so attentive. How could I have been so wrong? How had I missed the signs? I whispered to myself, too afraid to say it out loud. The life insurance, Mom, Valerie continued, the one you both signed 6 months ago, remember? $1 million. It felt like a blow to the stomach. Of course, the insurance. Andrew had insisted on it, saying it was to protect me, to secure my future if anything ever happened to him. But now, under this new light, I realized everything had been the opposite from the start. There's more, Valerie said in a near whisper. After he hung up, he started looking through some papers. I waited for him to leave and then went into his office. I found documents about his debts. Mom, he has a lot. It looks like the company is about to go bankrupt. I pulled the car to the side of the road, unable to keep driving. Andrew was bankrupt. How had I not seen it? He always talked about how well things were going, how secure we were. I also found this, Valerie said, pulling a folded paper from her pocket. It's a statement from another bank account in his name. He's been transferring money there for months, small amounts so no one would notice. I took the paper with trembling hands. It was true. An account I knew nothing about, accumulating what was clearly our money. My money, really. The proceeds from the sale of the apartment I had inherited from my parents. The truth hit me painfully hard. Andrew wasn't just broke, he had been stealing from me for months, maybe since the very beginning. And now, with his debts piling up and less money left to siphon, he had decided I was worth more dead than alive. My God, I whispered, feeling nauseous. How could I have been so blind? Valerie took my hand, her gesture surprisingly mature. It's not your fault, Mom. He fooled everyone, even me, for a while. Then a terrible thought struck me. Did you take those papers from his office? What if he notices something's missing? What if he suspects you know? Fear flickered in my daughter's eyes. No, I just took pictures with my phone and put everything back. I hope he doesn't notice, she said, though neither of us sounded convinced. Andrew was meticulous, observant. If anything was out of place, he'd notice. We have to go to the police, I said, grabbing my phone. And tell them what? Valerie asked. That we overheard him on the phone talking about killing you? That we found documents showing he's moving money around? We don't have real proof, Mom. He was right. It was our word against his. A respected businessman versus a hysterical ex-wife and a teenage girl. I could already imagine how it would all be twisted. As I tried to think, my phone buzzed. A message from Andrew. Where are you? The guests are asking about you. A chill ran down my spine. His tone was so normal, so casual, as if he hadn't just planned to murder me hours earlier. What do we do now? Valerie asked, her voice trembling. I had no answer. We couldn't go home, but we couldn't just vanish either. Andrew had connections, money, influence. If we ran without a plan, he'd find us. First, we need proof, I said finally. Something solid we can take to the district attorney's office. How? Valerie asked. The poison, I replied. The one he was going to use today. The idea was risky, almost suicidal. But as my fear hardened into cold, sharp determination, I knew it was the only way. We're going back. What? Mom, are you insane? He'll kill you. Not if I catch him first, I said, my own calm surprising me. Think about it. If we run without proof, he'll say I lost my mind and dragged you along. He'll find us eventually. But if we get evidence, he'll have to pay for everything. I turned the car around, heading back toward the house. We need real proof. The poison he planned to use today. That's our chance. If we find it, we'll have something to show the police. Valerie looked at me, torn between fear and admiration. What if he realizes what we're doing? We'll keep up the act, I explained. I'll say I went to the pharmacy, bought stronger painkillers, and I'm feeling better. You'll go straight to your room and pretend to be tired. While I distract him, you'll check his office, the same place you saw him last night. Valerie nodded, determined despite her fear. What if something goes wrong, or if he catches me? If anything goes wrong, text me the word now. If I get it, I'll make an excuse and we'll leave. If you find something, take pictures, but don't take anything with you. We can't risk him noticing. As we approached the house, my heart pounded hard. I was about to walk into the wolf's den, knowing the man I called my husband wanted me dead. The thought was so absurd it felt like a nightmare. When I parked in front of the garage, I saw more cars than before. All the guests had arrived. Remember the plan, I told Valerie as we walked toward the door. Act natural. If you feel in danger, leave the house and go to Mrs. Bennett's. Got it. She nodded and squeezed my hand before we went inside. The sound of conversation and laughter greeted us as we opened the door. In the living room, about 10 people chatted cheerfully, glasses of sparkling wine in hand. Andrew stood in the center, telling a story that had everyone laughing. When he saw us, his smile faltered for just an instant before returning. Oh, you're back, he said, coming over and wrapping an arm around my waist. That touch, once comforting, now filled me with disgust. Feeling better, sweetheart? A little, I replied, forcing a smile. The medicine's kicking in. Good to hear, he said, turning to Valerie. And you, young lady, you look a bit pale. I have a headache, she murmured, playing her part perfectly. I'm going to lie down for a bit. Of course, Andrew said with a concerned tone. Rest, dear. If you need anything, we'll be right downstairs. Valerie went upstairs and I joined the guests, accepting a glass of water that Andrew offered me. I refused the wine, saying it didn't go well with my medicine. No tea today? He asked with apparent casualness. A chill ran down my spine. No thanks, I said lightly. I'd rather avoid caffeine when I have a migraine. Something dark flickered briefly in his eyes before his charming expression returned. Very wise. Come, I want to introduce you to someone. As he guided me through the crowd, I smiled outwardly, though every nerve in my body was on high alert. Every time his hand brushed my arm or back, I had to fight the urge to pull away. Every smile he gave me seemed to hide something sinister. "This is my wife, Caroline," Andrew said to one of his partners with apparent pride. "She's a professor at the University of Houston. She teaches literature. Brilliant mind." It felt surreal hearing those compliments, knowing that behind his charming facade he was plotting to kill me. How many times had his praises been nothing but a mask to hide his true intentions? How many times had his "I love you" really meant, "I want your money"? I discreetly checked my phone. No message from Valerie yet. That could only mean she was still searching or hadn't found anything. About 20 minutes passed. While Andrew and I chatted with a couple about the economy, my phone vibrated. One word appeared on the screen: "Now." My blood turned to ice. "Excuse me," I said to the group, forcing a polite smile. "I'm going to check on my daughter." Before Andrew could say a word, I quickly walked away and climbed the stairs, almost running. Valerie was in her room, pale as paper. "He's coming this way," she whispered, gripping my arm. "I saw him heading upstairs." "Did you find anything?" I asked, pulling her toward the door. "Yes. In the office. There was a small unlabeled bottle hidden in the desk drawer. I took pictures, but we didn't have time for more." We heard footsteps in the hallway and Andrew's voice. "Caroline? Valerie? Are you there?" We looked at each other. We couldn't go into the hallway, he'd see us. The window opened to the backyard, but we were on the second floor. The fall could be dangerous. "Stay where you are," I whispered to my daughter. "We'll pretend we were just talking." The door opened and Andrew entered. His gaze immediately fixed on Valerie's frightened face. "Everything all right here?" he asked casually, but his eyes were sharp, alert. "Yes," I replied, trying to sound calm. "Valerie still has a headache. I came to check on her." Andrew studied us for a few seconds, narrowing his eyes. "I see. And you, sweetheart? Feeling better?" "A little," I lied. "I think I can go back to the guests." He smiled, but his eyes didn't match. "Excellent. By the way, I made you some tea, your favorite. It's waiting for you in the kitchen." My stomach churned. The trap he'd mentioned on the phone. "Thanks, but not today. The medicine." "I insist," he interrupted, still polite but firmer now. "It's a new blend I ordered just for you. It helps with headaches." That was the moment I understood how dangerous this really was. If I refused too strongly, he'd suspect. If I drank it, I'd die. "All right," I said finally, trying to buy time. "I'll stay with Valerie for a few more minutes." Andrew hesitated, then nodded. "Don't take too long. The guests are asking for you." As soon as the door closed, Valerie and I exchanged terrified looks. "The tea," she whispered. "He's going to insist you drink it." "I know," I said, panic rising. "We have to get out, even if it's through the window." Before we could move, we heard the sound of a key turning in the lock. Andrew had locked us in. "He locked us in," Valerie cried, rushing to the door. She turned the handle. Nothing. Panic threatened to take over, but I forced myself to think. If Andrew had locked the door, it meant he suspected something. Maybe he'd realized someone had been in his office. Or maybe our faces had given us away. "The window," I decided. "It's our only way out." I pulled the curtain aside. It was about 16 feet down to the grass. Not fatal, but dangerous. "It's too high, Mom," Valerie said, frightened. "I know, honey, but we don't have another choice." I looked around for something that could help us. My eyes landed on the bedspread. "We can use this as a rope." Quickly, I tore it off the bed and tied one end to the base of the desk. It wouldn't reach the ground, but it would shorten the fall. "Mom," Valerie whispered, pointing toward the door. "He's coming back." She was right, I could hear his footsteps getting closer. "Quick," I ordered, tossing the makeshift rope out the window. "You first. Climb down as far as you can, then let go. Bend your knees and roll when you hit the ground." Valerie hesitated for just a second, then climbed onto the window ledge. The footsteps were already right outside the door. "Now," I told her, helping her grip the fabric. She began to descend with agility, reaching the end of the sheet, still about 6.5 feet above the ground. "Let go," I urged her. The door was starting to open. Valerie dropped onto the grass, rolled and lifted her hand to show she was okay. There was no more time. Andrew was already stepping inside. Without thinking, I grabbed the sheet and slid down. I moved too fast and burned my hands, then heard his furious shout. "Caroline!" His voice, full of rage, made me release the sheet without thinking. I landed awkwardly, pain shooting through my left ankle, but adrenaline pushed me to my feet. "Run!" I yelled to Valerie, who was staring upward, horrified. I followed her gaze. Andrew was leaning out the window, his face twisted with fury. For a second I feared he might jump after us, but then he disappeared from view. "He's going to come down the stairs," I warned, grabbing her hand. "We have to move now." We ran across the backyard, me limping from the pain, until we reached the low wall separating our house from the side street. Valerie climbed first. I followed, landing hard and gritting my teeth. "Where do we go?" she gasped. I looked around. The house was inside Oak Ridge Estates, a gated community with minimal security. The main guardhouse was about 500 meters away, but Andrew had probably already alerted the guards, making up some story about his unstable wife running off with their daughter. "Over there," I said, pointing toward the trees leading to Memorial Park. "We can cut through the woods and get out through the service gate." As we ran, we heard doors slamming and people shouting. Andrew had sent the guests to look for us, turning our escape into a spectacle. I could picture him pretending to be worried. "My wife isn't well, she has episodes sometimes. Please help me find her." The thought gave me strength. I wouldn't let him make me the villain in his story. We ran faster into the park, that small patch of nature where neighbors usually came to walk their dogs. The park was empty at that hour, a blessing. We walked along a narrow path in silence. "The photos," I said, looking at Valerie. "Do you still have them?" She nodded and pulled her phone from her pocket to show me. On the screen were images of a small amber bottle, unmarked, hidden among papers in Andrew's desk drawer. It looked so ordinary, so harmless that anyone else would have overlooked it. But I knew, that was the weapon he planned to use against me. "There's more," Valerie said, swiping to the next photo. "I found this too." The next image showed a sheet of paper with his unmistakable handwriting. A list with times and notes. 10:30 a.m., guests arrive. 11:45, serve tea. Effect in 15 to 20 minutes. Look concerned. 12:10, call the ambulance. Too late. My stomach turned. It was a cold, methodical schedule for my death. Planned like a business meeting. "By God," I whispered. He was going to kill me today. Voices echoed in the distance, coming closer through the trees. The search had reached the park. "Come on," I urged, pulling Valerie's hand. "The service gate must be nearby." We started running off the path, pushing through bushes and branches. Every step hurt my ankle, but fear was a powerful anesthetic. Finally, we spotted a small metal gate used by maintenance staff to enter and exit the community. "It's locked," I said after pushing it with no success. Valerie looked around, then her eyes lit up. "Mom, your community access card. Try it on the reader." I pulled the card from my purse and swiped it through the scanner, praying it would work. A green light flashed and the lock clicked. We stepped out onto a narrow, quiet street behind Oak Ridge Estates, far from the main entrance. It was a normal residential area with modest houses and small shops. No one was around. "Where do we go now?" Valerie asked, squeezing my hand. I thought quickly. We couldn't go to friends or family. Those would be the first places Andrew would look. We needed somewhere anonymous, temporary. "Let's go to River Oaks District," I decided. "We'll figure things out there, then go to the Harris County District Attorney's office." We walked quickly to a main road and ordered a rideshare car. The driver glanced at us curiously. Two breathless women, clothes wrinkled, faces pale, but didn't ask questions when I told him to take us to the nearest shopping center. During the ride, Valerie rested her head on my shoulder, trembling. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" I asked softly, stroking her hair. "I'm scared," she admitted. "What if he finds us?" "He won't," I said, sounding more confident than I felt. "We're going to the authorities." With the evidence you found, they'll protect us. At the shopping center, I looked for a discreet spot. A cafe on the second floor seemed perfect. Busy enough to blend in but not too crowded. We ordered 2 hot chocolates and sat in a quiet corner. We need to call the authorities now, I said, picking up my phone. Then I saw dozens of missed calls and messages from Andrew. With trembling hands, I opened the latest one. Caroline, please come home. I'm worried about you and Valerie. This is about our argument yesterday. We can talk. Don't do anything impulsive. I love you. The falseness of his words made me sick. He was already building his story, creating evidence that I was unstable, even inventing an argument that never happened. What's wrong? Valerie asked, reading my face. He's building an alibi, I said, showing her the message. He's going to say I had a breakdown, that I imagined everything. Another message arrived. I called the police. They're looking for you both. Everyone's worried. Please, Caroline, think of Valerie. Cold fear ran through me. He had involved the police, not as the aggressor, but as the concerned husband of a mentally unstable wife. This makes everything harder, I muttered. If they're searching with his version of the story. Valerie looked terrified. What are we going to do? I took a deep breath. We needed someone who would believe us. Someone who could stand up for us against Andrew's lies. I'm calling attorney Lauren Price, I decided. She was my friend from college, now a criminal lawyer. We hadn't talked much lately, but we still kept in touch. If anyone could guide us, it was her. I dialed her number, praying she would answer on a Saturday. Lauren, it's Caroline, I said as soon as she picked up. I need your help. It's serious. For the next 20 minutes, I told her everything. Valerie's note, the phone call she overheard, the photos of the bottle, and the schedule, our escape. Lauren listened quietly, asking only a few sharp questions. Where are you? She asked finally. At River Oaks District, in a cafe on the second floor. Stay there, she ordered. I'm coming for you. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Don't talk to anyone, especially not the police, until I arrive. Understood? Yes, I said, feeling an enormous wave of relief. Thank you, Lauren. We waited in silence, nervously watching the people around us. Every man who walked in made me flinch, afraid I'd see Andrew's face. How did you know? I finally asked Valerie, holding her hands. How did you realize something was wrong before hearing that call? She looked down. I already suspected, Mom. Little things. The way he looked at you when he thought no one was watching, cold, calculating. How he tensed up when you mentioned the money from the apartment sale. She swallowed hard. Once I heard him on the phone saying the plan was taking longer than expected. I thought it was about work, but last night everything clicked. Why didn't you tell me before? Because I wasn't sure. And I doubted myself. You looked happy with him. After everything we went through with Dad, I didn't want to destroy your happiness over something that might have just been in my head. Until last night, when I was sure. Tears streamed down my face. My daughter had seen the danger before I did. She was protecting me when I should have been protecting her. I'm so sorry, I whispered, squeezing her hands. I'm sorry I didn't see it. It's not your fault, she said with a maturity that stunned me. He fooled everyone. He was good at it. Just then my phone vibrated again. Another message from Andrew. The police found blood in Valerie's room. Caroline, what did you do? Please tell me you're both okay. I showed the message to my daughter and her face went pale. Blood? There was no blood in my room. He's planting evidence, I said, feeling another chill. He wants it to look like I hurt you. Or worse, he was taking it to another level. Andrew wasn't just trying to make me look unstable. He was trying to frame me for a crime I didn't commit. Let's get out of here, Valerie said, standing up. What if the police come here looking for us? No, I said firmly. Lauren told us to stay put. If we leave now, it'll look like we're running away, and that'll only strengthen his lies. Then across the cafe I saw 2 uniformed officers walk in, scanning the room as if searching for someone. Mom, Valerie whispered when she noticed them too. Stay calm, I told her, even though my heart was pounding. We didn't do anything wrong. We have evidence. We'll talk to them carefully. The officers spotted us and began walking our way. I could tell by their expressions that they already knew who we were. They probably had our description, maybe even photos. "Mrs. Caroline Hayes?" one of them asked, stopping at our table. "Yes, that's me," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Your husband is very worried about you and your daughter," the officer said, his tone professional but cautious. "He reported that you left the house in a distressed state and might be putting the child at risk." Before I could respond, Valerie spoke up. "That's not true. My stepfather is trying to kill us. I have proof." The officers exchanged glances, skeptical of her confidence. The older one, about 50 with gray at his temples, frowned. "That's a very serious accusation, young lady," he said sternly. "We have evidence," I said quietly but firmly. "My daughter found a bottle of poison in my husband's office and a document where he detailed how and when he planned to kill me today." The younger officer stepped forward. "Ma'am, your husband told us you might be having psychological issues," he said, choosing his words carefully. "He mentioned you've had episodes before." Anger flared inside me. Andrew had prepared this perfectly. "That's absurd," I said, struggling to control myself. "I've never had any episodes." "He's lying because we discovered his plans." Valerie pulled out her phone. "Look," she said, showing them the pictures she had taken. "Here's the bottle I found hidden in his office, and here's the paper with the schedule of when he planned to poison her." The officers examined the images, their faces unreadable. "This looks like an ordinary bottle," the older one said. "And this paper could be any note. There's nothing that clearly proves a murder plot." Desperation rose in my chest. They didn't believe us. "You don't understand," I insisted. "He's kept us isolated for months, controlling the money, our movements. We found out he's bankrupt and transferring my money into secret accounts." "Mom," Valerie interrupted, looking toward the entrance. "There's Lauren." I looked up and saw my friend approaching confidently, flawless in her navy blazer despite it being Saturday. Her determined expression gave me a wave of relief. "Caroline," she greeted, assessing the scene quickly. "I see the police are already here." "Who are you, ma'am?" the older officer asked. "Attorney Lauren Price," she said, showing her ID. "Criminal defense lawyer. I represent Mrs. Hayes and her daughter." The officer's attitude shifted instantly. "Counselor," the senior officer explained, "we received a report from Mr. Andrew Hayes. He alleges that his wife is mentally unstable and could pose a danger to the child." "I see," Lauren said with a faint smile. "And I assume you've also considered the possibility that Mr. Hayes is making false accusations to cover up his own crimes, correct?" The silence that followed was telling. "Let's clear up a few things," she continued, taking a seat beside me. "My clients have photographic evidence of potentially lethal substances and documents suggesting a plan to poison Mrs. Hayes. In addition, the minor overheard a phone conversation in which Mr. Hayes described his plan." The officers exchanged uneasy looks. "Do you have a warrant to detain my clients?" Lauren asked calmly. "No, counselor," the older officer admitted. "We're just investigating a possible missing person report." "As you can see, no one's missing," Lauren replied. "My clients are safe, away from a real threat." "Mr. Hayes mentioned there was blood in the daughter's room," the younger officer said, glancing at Valerie. "He fears her mother may have hurt her." Valerie gave a nervous laugh. "That's ridiculous. There was no blood in my room." "He's planting evidence." "I'd like to confirm that the minor is unharmed," the officer insisted. "She's perfectly fine," Lauren replied firmly. "And under my legal protection. At this moment, I suggest you return to the district attorney's office, where I'll be filing a formal complaint." "On what charges, counselor?" the senior officer asked. "Attempted murder, falsification of evidence, and filing a false report against Mr. Andrew Hayes," she answered without hesitation. The officers hesitated but didn't argue. "We'll need you to appear at the district attorney's office to give a statement," the older officer said finally. "Of course," Lauren replied. "We'll be there within an hour. Now, if you'll excuse us, we need to speak privately." Reluctantly, the officers stepped away, giving us wary looks. When we were alone, Lauren took my hands. "Caroline, the situation is worse than I thought," she said softly. "Andrew moved fast. He's building a case against you, trying to portray you as an unstable woman who could harm her own daughter." "What are we going to do?" I asked, fear creeping back in. "First, we need stronger evidence," she said. "The photos help, but we need to get the actual bottle and have it tested. We also have to prove his financial fraud." "But how?" Valerie asked. "You don't have to go back home," Lauren assured us. "I'm requesting a search warrant right away. I have contacts who can expedite it, especially since a minor is involved." He paused, looking at me seriously. "Caroline, you have to stay strong. Andrew is going to fight dirty. He'll use anything to discredit you. Arguments, stressful moments, anything he can twist to make you look unstable." I swallowed hard, realizing the scale of what I was facing. How could I not see it? I murmured. "People like him are experts at pretending," Lauren said. "Functional sociopaths who maintain a perfect facade for years. Don't blame yourself." At that moment, my phone vibrated again. Another message from Andrew. "The police found you. I'm coming to the mall. I just want to help." A second message followed. "Please don't do anything impulsive before I get there." I showed the messages to Lauren, who immediately went on alert. "He's coming here," she said, standing up. "We have to leave now." "Where to?" I asked, helping Valerie gather her things. "To the Harris County District Attorney's office," Lauren replied. "It's the safest place right now. Andrew won't try anything there, and we can file the formal complaint before he arrives." We left the cafe quickly, taking the longer route to the parking lot to avoid the main entrance. Lauren led us to her car, a discreet black sedan, and moments later we were on our way. During the drive, Valerie held my hand tightly. Her face was pale but determined. I thought about how her note had saved my life. How many women never got the same chance? How many realized the danger only when it was too late? When we arrived, the building was surprisingly quiet for a Saturday. Lauren led us straight to investigator Lucas Raymond's office. Apparently, she had a good professional relationship with him. "Investigator Raymond," she greeted as we entered. "We have a serious situation." The middle-aged man looked up and gestured for us to sit. "My clients are being threatened by Mrs. Hayes's husband," Lauren said firmly. "We have evidence that he planned to poison her today during an event at their home." The investigator raised his eyebrows. "That's a serious accusation, Counselor Price." "And we have serious evidence," Lauren replied, signaling to Valerie to show the photos. He examined the images with far more attention than the mall officers had. As he reviewed them, Lauren continued, "We also believe Mr. Hayes has been diverting Mrs. Hayes's money and may be involved in financial fraud. He's been trying to discredit her by claiming mental health issues that were never diagnosed." "I understand," the investigator said, returning the phone to Valerie. "But we'll need more than photos." "Exactly why I'm requesting a search warrant for the residence," Lauren explained, handing over documents she had prepared on the way. "There's a minor at risk and reason to believe Mr. Hayes is fabricating false evidence as we speak." He began reading when noise erupted at the entrance. Through the glass, I saw Andrew walk in, escorted by the same officers who had confronted us at the mall. His face was a perfect mask of concern. "Caroline." "Valerie," he exclaimed, trying to enter, but an officer blocked him. "Thank God you're safe." The investigator looked from him to us, trying to piece things together. "Is this the man in question?" "Yes," I said, my body tensing. "This is Andrew Hayes, my husband." The investigator motioned for him to come in. Andrew approached, feigning affection, and tried to hug Valerie, who immediately stepped back. "What's going on?" he asked, sounding so convincing that if I didn't know the truth, even I might have doubted myself. "Caroline, why did you run off like that? Everyone's been worried." "Mr. Hayes," the investigator interrupted, "Mrs. Hayes and her attorney are filing a complaint against you for attempted murder." Andrew feigned shock. "That's ridiculous. Caroline, what are you doing?" "It's about that medication. I told you it was only to help with your anxiety attacks." What medication? The investigator asked, intrigued. Caroline's had some issues, Andrew said softly, lowering his voice as if pained. Anxiety, paranoia. Sometimes Dr. Vance prescribed her a mild tranquilizer. She thinks I'm trying to drug her, but it's what the doctor recommended. A chill ran through me. His story sounded so polished, so believable. That's a lie, I said, my voice trembling with anger. I never had anxiety. I never even met that doctor. He's making everything up. Andrew sighed theatrically. You see, investigator? She's in denial. She refuses treatment, which only worsens her episodes. Mr. Hayes, Lauren cut in sharply, my client has never been diagnosed with any psychological disorder. Can you produce medical records supporting your claim? Andrew hesitated only briefly. I can request them from Dr. Vance on Monday, he said smoothly. But that's not the point. I'm worried about Caroline and Valerie. I just want to take them home. That won't be possible right now, the investigator declared, to my immense relief. We have serious accusations from both sides that must be investigated. Valerie, who had remained silent until then, suddenly stood up. I heard everything, she said, staring directly at Andrew. Last night I overheard you on the phone planning to poison Mom. You said it would look like a heart attack. You also said you'd take care of me afterward. You're a liar. For a split second, I saw fury flash across Andrew's face before he regained his mask of calm. Valerie, sweetheart, you must have misunderstood. I was talking about work. You only heard part of the conversation. I didn't misunderstand, she said firmly. You wanted to kill Mom for the insurance money. You're bankrupt. I saw the documents. Andrew's face hardened. See, Caroline? You've filled her head with nonsense. This is psychological abuse. Before I could respond, an officer entered holding a large envelope. Investigator, he said, we just received the preliminary forensic results from the Hayes residence. The investigator opened the envelope and read through the report, his face growing serious. Silence filled the room. Interesting, he murmured at last. Mr. Hayes, you mentioned blood in your daughter's room, correct? Andrew nodded, maintaining his look of fake concern. Yes. When I went in, I saw stains on the carpet. It frightened me. Curious, the investigator continued, placing the papers on the table. Because the preliminary analysis indicates the blood is less than 2 hours old, and the blood type doesn't match either Mrs. Hayes or the minor. Andrew's mask slipped. I don't understand, he stammered. It's simple, said Investigator Raymond calmly. That blood is your type, Mr. Hayes. Everything indicates that you were the one who planted it. A heavy silence fell over the room. Andrew seemed to be calculating his next move. That's impossible, he said at last. There must be a mistake in the lab results. There isn't, Raymond replied evenly. The forensic team found a small vial of blood at the bottom of your sock drawer. It appears you collected it yourself beforehand. Andrew's face lost all color. Furthermore, the investigator continued, we also found this. He pulled a photo from the envelope, the same bottle Valerie had photographed, now sealed in an evidence bag. The contents are being analyzed, but preliminary results show traces of a substance similar to arsenic. Doesn't sound like anxiety medication, does it, Mr. Hayes? Andrew jumped to his feet, his face twisted between rage and fear. This is a setup. Caroline must have planted all of it. And when would she have done that? Asked Attorney Lauren Price calmly. Considering she and Valerie have been here for more than 2 hours, and according to your own words, they left the house this morning. Andrew looked around like a trapped animal. You don't understand, he stammered. Caroline isn't who you think she is. She's manipulative. She's been stealing from me for months. How interesting that you mention theft, Raymond interrupted, crossing his arms. Because we also found very interesting bank documents in your office. Regular transfers from the joint account to an account in the Cayman Islands. It was like watching a house of cards collapse. Each new revelation shattered the careful facade Andrew had built. His once charming, worried face now showed what he had always hidden: coldness, calculation, contempt. There's an explanation for all of this, he insisted, though his voice had lost all conviction. I'm sure there is, said Raymond, standing. And you'll have plenty of time to explain it formally. Andrew Hayes, you are under arrest for attempted murder, falsification of evidence, filing a false report, and financial fraud. He signaled to the officers waiting outside. In that instant, something changed in Andrew. His fake calm vanished, replaced by pure hatred. You ruined everything, he shouted, lunging toward me. The officers grabbed him before he could reach me, but not before I finally saw the real Andrew, the monster who had hidden behind smiles and affection for 2 years. Did you really think I loved you? He snarled as they restrained him. You're just a mediocre teacher with a messed up daughter. You were worth nothing but your money and your life insurance. Valerie clung to me, trembling. I held her tight as I watched, stunned, while they handcuffed him. Get him out of here, ordered Raymond. The officers dragged Andrew out, his furious shouts echoing down the hall. When the door closed, the room filled with a heavy silence. Raymond turned to us with a mix of regret and relief. Mrs. Hayes, you and your daughter will need to give a formal statement, but first I want to apologize for what you've been through. I nodded silently, still trying to process what I had just witnessed. The man I thought I knew, the man I had loved, had never really existed. I had been sleeping next to a stranger. Caroline, said Lauren gently, taking my hand. Are you all right? I don't know, I admitted honestly. It's going to take time to understand all of this. The investigator offered us water and told us to rest before making our statements. I hugged Valerie, who looked like she was in shock. You saved my life, I whispered. I'll never forget that. She nodded, tears silently running down her cheeks. The next few hours blurred together. Statements, paperwork, procedures. I told them everything. How I met Andrew after my divorce, how he won me over with kindness, how he gradually took control of the finances and isolated me from my friends. Valerie described how she'd overheard the call, found the documents and the bottle, and had the courage to leave me that note. Pretend you're sick and leave. 5 words that changed everything, that saved my life. The forensic team worked all night at the house, uncovering more evidence of financial fraud. Andrew had transferred almost all my money into secret accounts and forged my signature. He had even taken out a $1 million life insurance policy in my name without my knowledge, making me believe it was for home coverage. The analysis of the bottle confirmed what we already knew. It contained a mixture of arsenic and other substances capable of inducing symptoms similar to a heart attack, a death that would have looked completely natural. By the time we finished at the district attorney's office, it was past midnight. Andrew had been formally arrested and was awaiting arraignment. Lauren insisted on taking us to her home. You can't go back yet, she said, showing us the guest room. Besides being a crime scene, it would be too painful. That night, lying next to Valerie, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Andrew's face twisting in rage as his lies fell apart. Mom, Valerie whispered in the dark, her voice fragile. Do you think he ever loved us? Even a little? The question broke my heart. Despite everything, she was still just a teenager who had lost a father figure. First her biological dad and now Andrew in the worst possible way. I don't know, sweetheart, I said softly. But what I do know is that the problem wasn't us, it was him. Some people simply can't love. They only see others as tools for their own gain. She stayed quiet for a long moment before asking, What happens now, Mom? That was the million-dollar question. How do you rebuild your life after a betrayal like that? How do you learn to trust again? One day at a time, I said, hugging her. Together. Always together. In the weeks that followed, we uncovered the full web of lies. Andrew had never been the successful businessman he pretended to be. His company had been bankrupt for years. He'd married me for money, after my parents' inheritance and the proceeds from the apartment I sold. Every romantic gesture, every kind word had been part of a cold, calculated plan. The investigation revealed something even more disturbing. I wasn't his first victim. Before me there had been another woman, a widow who died, naturally, 6 months after marrying him. No one suspected anything at the time. She had a heart condition, so a supposed heart attack didn't raise any alarms. Andrew inherited everything, spent it quickly, and then found his next target. Me. The trial became a media spectacle. The story of the businessman who plotted to poison his wife for money, stopped only by the bravery of a teenage girl, captured the public's attention. Valerie and I had to relive that day over and over again, in statements, interrogations, and in front of the court. Painful as it was, the process also became a path to healing. Every piece of evidence, every testimony, every revelation helped me understand that I wasn't guilty or naive. Andrew was a sociopath, a predator who had perfected his method for years. When the verdict came, it was just 30 years in prison for attempted murder, plus 15 years for financial fraud, with new investigations opened into the death of his previous wife. 6 months after that Saturday, Valerie and I moved into a new apartment in Houston, smaller than the house we had shared with Andrew, but ours. A space free of painful memories, a real beginning. One morning, while unpacking my books, I found a folded piece of paper tucked between the pages of a novel. I recognized Valerie's handwriting. It read, "Pretend you're sick and leave." I placed the note inside a small wooden box on my nightstand, a reminder not just of the danger we'd survived but of the strength we'd found in ourselves. A year passed. Life moved forward, marked by invisible scars but also by hope. On a sunny Saturday, Valerie and I were in the kitchen preparing lunch, a ritual that had become ours. I watched her slice tomatoes with careful precision, so focused. She had grown so much, not just taller but stronger, wiser. "What are you thinking about, Mom?" she asked, noticing my gaze. "How lucky we are," I replied, surprised by the honesty in my voice. "Lucky? After everything we went through with that monster?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. I nodded, setting the wooden spoon on the counter. "Yes. Lucky to have survived. Lucky to have each other. Lucky for your courage that day." A blush rose to her cheeks. She still felt uncomfortable when I mentioned her heroism. "Anyone would have done the same," she murmured. "No, sweetheart. Not everyone. Most people would have hesitated or frozen. You acted. And that saved my life." Valerie smiled faintly and returned to her task. "You know what Dr. Beth Carter said in therapy this week?" she asked, changing the subject. "That trauma survivors develop a sixth sense for danger. Maybe that's why I always felt something off about Andrew, even when you didn't." Dr. Carter was our therapist. We decided to go to therapy together after everything, and it was one of the best choices we'd ever made. "She's right," I admitted. "You've always been perceptive, even as a child after your father left." I trailed off. I didn't want to reopen old wounds. Valerie had been only 9 when her father abandoned us, and that wound had left deep marks. "Yes," she said quietly. "I think I learned to recognize men who can't be trusted." We kept cooking in silence. Sunlight filled the apartment, and the smell of spices mingled with a rare sense of peace. The doorbell rang, breaking the calm. "That must be Lauren," I said, checking the time. "She's always early." Lauren had become more than just our lawyer, she was family now. Since the case, we had dinner together at least once a month. What began as legal meetings had turned into a genuine friendship. I opened the door, and there she was, holding a bottle of wine and wearing her usual radiant smile. "I bring good news," she said, hugging us. We sat in the living room, curious. "The police finally found the missing evidence in Patricia Miller's death, Andrew's first wife," Lauren explained. "They exhumed the body and found traces of arsenic in her hair and nails." A chill went through me. The confirmation was devastating, but also liberating. "So that means he'll be tried for murder," Lauren confirmed. "With his current conviction and this new evidence, he'll likely spend the rest of his life in prison. No chance of parole." Valerie let out a long breath. "So, he'll never get out?" "Never," Lauren assured her. "He'll never hurt anyone again." The news should have brought only relief, but a deep sadness crept in too, not for him but for the lives he had destroyed. For Patricia, who hadn't had a Valerie to save her. "There's one more thing," Lauren added, her tone softening. "The sale of Andrew's property has been finalized." As part of the restitution agreement, all the proceeds will be transferred to you. I looked at her in disbelief. How much? Approximately $500,000, Lauren replied. It was enough to secure Valerie's future, to let her study wherever she wanted and give us stability. A significant amount, especially after a year of living modestly. I don't know what to say, I murmured. Say we're going to celebrate with this wine, Lauren smiled, raising the bottle. For the first time in a long while I truly laughed. And that we can finally close this chapter and look toward the future, Lauren said as she opened the bottle and Valerie finished preparing lunch. I went to my bedroom and opened the small wooden box where I kept the note that had saved my life. I stared at those 5 words for a long time, thinking about how something so small, so simple had completely changed the course of our lives. Pretend you're sick and leave. If Valerie hadn't been so observant, so brave to act, I probably wouldn't be here. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. I went back to the living room where Lauren and Valerie were chatting animatedly about college plans that now seemed much more within reach. I looked at them, my daughter strong and brilliant, my friend loyal and fierce, and felt a wave of gratitude so intense it nearly took my breath away. A toast, I said, raising my glass after Lauren poured the wine. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, they echoed together. As we ate, talking about the future instead of the past, I realized that although the scars remained, they were no longer wounds. They were marks of survival. Andrew had tried to destroy us, but in the end his betrayal made us stronger than he ever imagined. I had learned to trust my instincts again, to recognize warning signs, and above all, to value the strength that had always been within me, the kind I only discovered when I needed it most. Valerie, meanwhile, had transformed from an insecure teenager into a confident young woman who understood her worth. Therapy had helped her heal not only from Andrew's abuse but also from the abandonment of her biological father. Now she spoke with passion about studying psychology, inspired by how therapy had changed both our lives. "Mom," she said as we washed the dishes, with Lauren helping to put everything away, "do you remember that talk in the hospital after it was all over?" I nodded. I remembered those blurry days after Andrew's arrest, when we both went through medical tests to make sure he hadn't started poisoning us earlier. "You asked me how we were going to move forward," Valerie continued. "And you said, one day at a time, together." "I remember," I said, my throat tightening. "I think we're doing it, aren't we?" I smiled, hugging her with my hands still wet from the soap. "Yes, sweetheart. We're doing it." That night, after Lauren left and Valerie fell asleep, I sat on the balcony watching the lights of Houston. I thought about all the women who maybe right now were living with their own Andrews, unaware of the danger under their own roof. I decided our story needed to be told, not just as a warning but as a message of hope, to show that it's possible to survive the worst kind of betrayal and rebuild your life. That appearances deceive. And that sometimes, salvation comes from the most unexpected place, from a note hastily written by a teenage girl. The next day I began writing this story. Our story. The story of the note that saved my life. And if you're reading this now, I hope you remember 2 things I learned the hard way. Trust your instincts even when you can't explain why. And never underestimate the power of a small act of courage. Like the 5 words my daughter wrote that Saturday morning. Pretend you're sick and leave. Sometimes, to discover your true strength, you first have to pretend you have it, until one day you realize you're not pretending anymore. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to our channel and tell me in the comments which part moved you the most.